Ready.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let us practice Metta first, and you can look at the screen and recite with me together. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth. May all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness, which is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. Now let us continue this practice. Now with this metta thought in our mind, we focus our mind on our breathing. We spend these few minutes in practicing meditation first. When you pay attention to your breath, you notice the breath touching the rims of your nostrils, and then expanding your upper chest area, and then expanding lower abdominal area. And then as you breathe out, you notice contracting lower abdominal area, chest area, and leaving the breath through the nostrils. As you breathe out, then there will be a brief pause. Notice that while noticing without verbalizing or conceptualizing, just breathe in, paying total, undivided, mindful attention to your breath. Mindful attention is the attention without greed, hatred, or delusion. That is also called Yoniso Manasikara. Pay attention to the beginning, root of each breath. That is the rims of your nostrils or chest area or lower abdomen. And then you notice the feeling rising, feeling of the breath. Then you experience the perception, attention, consciousness. As you breathe in, they arise and they pass away. When you are breathing out, again they arise and they pass away. So, what you experience is the breath arising and passing away, feeling arises and passes away, attention, perception arises and passes away, attention or thoughts, intention arises and passes away, consciousness arises and passes away. All of them arise and pass away. None of them stay fixed, or in the present moment, nothing stays. Everything in this very moment you notice fleeing, disappearing, influx, and moving, changing all the time. That reality we experience. And then When we experience this reality, we let them happen without trying to hold on to anything. This is the nature of our mind. In reality, nothing mind can hold on to. Mind seeing them rising and passing away. Mind knows and sees that there is nothing we can keep. That is called letting go. And then arises a moment of very deep awareness of loving friendliness, because resentment as a hindrance fades away. As resentment fades away, loving, friendly feeling arises in our mind. We mentioned loving friendliness or metta has three levels: verbalizing level, and repeating the words, and then feeling level, and then the root of it taking place in the mind. And then arises the moment of compassion when restlessness and worry fade away. Restlessness and worry arise because of feeling of guilty, or have not done something correctly, or unfinished business, and also the thought of cruelty. Because of these things, the mind is not very full of compassion. When these fade away, compassion arises. Now you have three wholesome mental states: greed, hatred, and restlessness and worry, sleepiness and drowsiness and doubt all fade away, and their place is taken by the thought of generosity, thought of friendliness, thought of compassion, joy, and happiness. When these arise, you gain concentration. The concentration is very sharp and deep. That is, we can use that concentration to reflect back to see how deep our changes are. Things are changing in a most rapid way that we cannot otherwise notice unless we have concentration. Friends, when you pay attention and gain deep concentration, you can see the body, feeling, perceptions, thought, consciousness, all of them appear and disappear at a very rapid speed that we cannot conceive the speed. They arise and pass away only in deep concentrated state of mind, where the mind is very sharp, clear, clean, that we can see them changing. And that opens our wisdom eye to see that there is nothing permanent called self or soul. Now with this, we want to stop and continue practicing our silent meditation, noticing all these things without verbalizing, and being in that state until we ring the bell, at least next 20 minutes. dukkha cha nidukkha, bhaya cha nibhaya, soka cha nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this wish, friends, we continue our talk first, and then at the end, again, we want to make the same wish with greater attention, clear attention. And let me continue the talk. Yesterday, I mentioned that since we don't know the senses, sensory objects, consciousness, contact, feelings as they really are, we will not liberate ourselves from the mass of suffering. So the Buddha said from his own experience, friends, I want to mention something that we repeat what the Buddha has taught us, reading books, listening to talks, and so forth, all based on what he taught us. But when he realized this, he did not have a book, a library, internet, teacher to ask questions to clarify his doubt with regard to the attainment of liberation. And on his own, he discovered, rather rediscovered, the Noble Eightfold Path and dependent origination. Just imagine, friends, when there was nothing available, simply focusing the mind on his own personal experience. If we were to start something, originate something by ourselves, just imagine how difficult it is. It is almost impossible for us to come up with something like dependent origination. Now we talk about it because we learn from the books, teachers, and so on. And therefore, the Buddha said, this is a very powerful statement. He says, so long as bhikkhus, addressing us, the monks, who were very close disciples of the Buddha, among four segments of his community, bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasika, monks, nun, laymen, laywomen. Out of them, he was surrounded, always surrounded by bhikkhus. So his teaching he addressed to bhikkhus, it doesn't mean others are precluded, they also included. And we have to understand that too, that he addressed bhikkhus who were very close to him. He said, so long bhikkhus, as I did not directly know as they really are the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these 6 internal sense bases, I do not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world with its devas, Mara and Brahma, in this generation with its ascetics and Brahmins, its devas and humans, but this is what he said, but when I directly knew all this as it really is, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world with gods, Maras, Brahmas, human, divine, and so forth. And then this is the discovery. It is not easy for somebody to have this kind of confidence from learning from books, from listening to talks. But he had this confidence and perfect awareness, and then he very clearly said, the knowledge and vision arose in me. Knowledge and vision arose in him by seeing them happening within himself, penetrating all this. Unshakable is my liberation of mind. It is not something wavering, it's shaking with any doubt, because it is so perfectly clear to him. This is my last birth. Now there is no more renewed existence. You can say this is your last birth. Anybody can say it is his last birth, because the person has not seen the past or future, and that's what most people say, this is my last birth. Anybody can say this, but they have not done what they were supposed to do to make this life the last birth. Without doing what they are supposed to do, that this is the last birth, they are groping in the dark, and they simply say for the sake of saying, without knowing the truth. Now, the Buddha saw this very clearly, saw the cause of repeated birth in this samsara. And he saw it very clearly that he eliminated it. What did he do? He understood the 6 senses, and they are sensory objects, consciousness, contact, feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, and they are gratification, danger, and disappearance or escape. And he said, because this is what, before I mention this, I must say, many people find it very difficult to understand to live, how can one live without clinging or grasping or holding on to something. Of course, you must have interest in something to continue doing it. You have to have a desire to exist, to earn, to propagate, and so on. You have to have desire. So you ask, without desire, how can you live? So Buddha gave a very beautiful simile to illustrate the problem. Simile you can see in Samyutta Nikaya, that is called the bondage of Vepachitti Bandhana. Vepachitti Bandhana. Vepachitti is, according to this story, this legendary figure, and this is the story that there was a war between deities and asuras. Sura, asura. Sura is deities, asura means demons, so to say. So there was a war. Then in this war, demons lost. Then the king of, is called Sakra, ordered his other deities to bind Vepachitti. Vepachitti is the chief of demons. The chief of divines is Sakra or Indra. Sakra in Sanskrit. So he ordered his deities to bind Vepachitti demon, king of demons, in 5 places, both hands, both legs, and the neck. He was really arrested with a very strong chain and dragged him to heaven. And then if Vepachitti, the king of demons, said that deities are wrong, demons are right in this war, then the demon Vepachitti will go back to demons' realm and continue to suffer, because demons are not happy beings. But if he says that deities are right, demons are wrong, he can be released from this bondage of 5 traps or chains and can enjoy heavenly bliss. Heavenly bliss. And the Buddha said, may bhikkhus, the bondage of Mara is stronger than this bondage of demon. And he said, this is the predicament. Now this demon, he cannot betray his own community or demon, and saying that because he fought for them on their side. Now after he lost, if he were to say that demons were wrong, he was simply betraying them. And he did not want to do that. On the other hand, if he did not say that demons were wrong, divine beings are right, then he can stay in the divine realm enjoying bliss. Buddha said, this bondage is, the bondage of Mara is stronger than this. What is this Mara? This Mara that we all are bound by are 10. It's called bandhana. Today I mention only one, that is the desire. Other 9 I mentioned, I know them all, but now in order to continue this talk, I would say the first one is uh, the, the enemy, what you call, retinue or the army. First army is desire. And when we do see this army, Mara, we continue to be in the demon's realm, not seeing the eyes and so on, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, and their respective objects, consciousness, contact, feeling and so on. If we do not see them exactly as they are, we are bound by the Mara, that is by desire. So the Buddha said, therefore, I teach you all. Buddha said, because I teach you the all, and listen carefully. And what bhikkhus is the all? Eye and forms, the ear and sounds, the nose and odors, the tongue and taste, the body and tactile objects, the mind and mental phenomena. This is all. I mentioned yesterday this is our world, and Buddha here said this is all. You find this in Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta, Salayatana, what do you call, Sangyutta in Sangyutta Nikaya. If somebody says beside this all, there is another all, that person is really confused. He would meet with vexation for that reason, because that would not be with the the wisdom the person would say that. Now, then therefore he said, bhikkhus, this is what we don't see. There is you remember the first sermon, Dhamma Chakkapavatana Sutta, only one of the 5 attain stream entry, listening to the 5 sermon, first sermon. Then remaining 4 had not attained even stream entry. Then Buddha gave a sermon, second sermon. In that second sermon is called the fire sermon, sermon on fire. And he said, bhikkhus, all are on fire. He first says that in the earlier paragraph I mentioned, he said, I teach you all. And then in that discourse he said, bhikkhus, all are on fire. What are the all? Form, feeling, perceptions, thought, and consciousness. 6. They are on fire. You might wonder what this fire is. There are 11 fires. And these 11 fires, we must remember these 11 fires. What are the 11 fires? First, the fire of lust, fire of hatred. Number 3, fire of delusion. Number 4, fire of birth. Number 5, fire of aging. Number 5, fire of death. Number 6, fire of sorrow. then lamentation, next fire, pain, another fire, displeasure, another fire, and despair, another fire. These are the 11 fires. That is greed, hatred, delusion, then the birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. These are the 11 fires. And we are all of us are burning with these 11 fires. Now, seeing them as they really are means seeing these 6 senses burn or 6 senses on fire. Seeing this. What kind of fire? Birth, decay, death, sorrow, greed, hatred, delusion, birth, decay, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. These are the 11 fires. And we are always burning with these fires. And that we do not see them happening. We do not see these 6 senses on fire. We don't see that. And when the Buddha saw this, he saw this, then the vision arose in him, light arose in him, enlightenment arose in him. So, seeing this, Buddha said, bhikkhus, the instructed noble disciple experienced revulsion towards I, towards form, towards eye consciousness, towards eye contact, towards whatever feeling arises with eye contact as condition, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant, experience revulsion towards them. The revulsion is not something as we said, the very depressing state, but not going forward to them. Stop that pursuit. That is called revulsion. And in Mahanidana Sutta, it is another very beautiful discourse. The Buddha, Venerable Ananda came to the Buddha and said, Venerable Sir, we were talking about this dependent origination, remember, in this whole series. Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, Venerable Sir, this dependent origination is deep, and it looks deep, it sees deep, but it seems to be very clear and easy for me. It is not that deep. Then Buddha said, do not say Ananda, do not say so. Ananda, this dependent or origination Ananda is deep, and it appears to deep. Because of not understanding and not penetrating this Dhamma is this dependent origination, this generation has become like tangled skein, like a knotted ball of thread, like matted rushes and reeds, and does not pass beyond samsara with its plane of misery, unfortunate destinations, and lower realms of rebirth. Since we do not see them, we are very much confused. And Buddha said this dependent origination is deep and it appears to deep, appears to be deep. It is just like when there is a pond full of water. When you look at it, some water is very clear. Then you think you can see the depth. Then you say, it is very clear, I can see the depth, and it is not deep. Because depth is, the bottom you can see very clearly. But actually the lake is, they seem to be shallow, but it is very deep. And it is deep. It appears to be deep, and it is deep. Somebody who looks at it superficially might say, since the water is clear, that it is not deep. Similarly, dependent origination, when we look at it superficially, especially when we memorize those 12 steps, one can say, well, it is very simple, we can understand it. But in reality, when we decompress, the Buddha has given the dependent origination in the compressed form. Like these days we do that when you want to send a document, if it is too large, we compress it. And then the person we can send it. Similarly, Buddha compressed the dependent origination for us to remember. Now we have to decompress it. When we decompress it, then we can see the depth of the dependent origination. And I am trying to decompress it using various ways for us to understand and understand the depth and profundity of dependent origination. So I was talking about mentality, materiality, and consciousness, these three. And I have not finished the mentality, materiality, because everything that I so far mentioned belong to that category, mentality and materiality. And tomorrow I will continue this, and don't think that I'm off the track. I'm on the track, still on the track, and want to continue this talk. Perhaps soon I will be able to finish the mentality and materiality and move on to the next step. And so now, friends, I want to end this talk and want to wish. Now we have, according to our tradition, we have acquired great deal of merits. Merits are the skill or state of mind that we develop, cultivate. Now we have cultivated, we practice Metta, listen to Dhamma talk, and acquire a lot of merits. And we use this, the mental state, very powerful mental state, very deep state. With this Metta, we want to wish everybody who are suffering now from this COVID-19 be free from the suffering, and those who have lost their loved ones are still grieving, and thousands of people have passed away. I saw even in the United States almost 96,000, 96 world record, have passed away, 96,000, and more than 1 million people are suffering. In every country there are so many deaths and so many people are suffering. the grieving the death in the United States, I'm pretty sure all these relatives and friends of those 96,000 people who passed away are grieving. We want to wish them peace and liberate from suffering and overcome their grief and return to their normal life. And we also want to wish everyone who is vulnerable to this sickness, and be they may have courage, immunity, power to overcome their fear, and those who support them in many ways have more compassion, understanding, courage, determination to continue their support, especially those medical professionals like doctors, nurses, and so on, who dedicate their life is, even at the risk of their own life. And we want to wish them courage, understanding, and strength to continue their practice with very good health, especially those who also want to make decision and can make decision are in a position of making decision. Be wise, compassionate, patient, understanding to make right decision for the benefit of everybody. With this metta wish, earnest wish, let me conclude this morning's talk. Thank you very much for coming and listening.
Sadhu, sadhu.